Manchester United host Fulham on Sunday. 7th goes to 4th as Michael Carrick looks to make it 3 wins from 3 in charge of Manchester United after last weekend's amazing late win at Arsenal. This is Tactics Exposed Team Talk, and in this video we'll answer 3 tactical questions ahead of Sunday's game with SunSport's tactical guru Dean Scoggins. Dino, let's get straight into it with question 1. How do Manchester United break down Fulham's low block? Going to be a totally different game than Carrick's first 2 in charge. Talk to us.
Yeah, and Man United fans who have seen them in months previous, not just the last 2 weeks, will be slightly concerned about a run of fixtures that isn't Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal, because they play very well in those big games. I don't think Fulham's will be totally a low block, which I'll come on to in a minute, because Marco Silva's got the team ticking at the moment and they're attacking well, and don't forget Harry Wilson in all of this as well. But the key, I've had the privilege before of watching an international manager do a session against the low block. So it's really, really interesting to see.
Who was the international manager?
It was Sven-Göran Eriksson, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was, you get your striker in that position there because you want defenders attracted to you. When we talk about a low block, what Fulham will likely do is almost go into a similar shape to Manchester United and make it almost like a 4-4-2 low block like that, because this 4 here in the square is key to the number 10 not getting in between the lines, okay? So then we move the team up. As I always say in Tactics Exposed, we're looking for a 3-2-5 attacking shape, okay? So there it is there.
So your fullback in there, Dino?
It could be your fullback in there, very much so, or your fullback could be there. Okay. So, but the keys to breaking down this low block, okay, there's a couple of things. One of them is trying to obviously drag a team out slightly. So that's where not just your double pivot in midfield, which we're most likely to see Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro again, it's your centre-backs that are the key here. Because if you can get a centre-back on the ball in that position there, this could be, if the ball's gone this side first, that could actually be your left-back Luke Shaw coming inside to form that 3. And this side, it could be Harry Maguire coming into that position there. Because what that does is hopefully draw a team out. And that isn't a lot of space I've just opened up there, but it's enough for a ball to go in behind, okay? So can you drag them out slightly into that position there? The second thing is these spaces here. So that's what, when I watched it live, that's what was happening, is that they had basically had this coned out area where they're attacking those zones there. So can you get your Kobbie Mainoo figure to bounce a couple of passes around here so you can get into that zone there? What then inevitably happens with a defensive team is the left side of the midfield will come out, right? Obvious. You're going to try, that will then create a back 5. So then this midfielder here is going to come in. Again, let me just move them along. That's what will happen. So the second thing is, can you switch play quickly?
Right.
What happens when it doesn't quite work is play gets recycled around these areas and the whole team shuffles across, yeah? But
the defensive team.
But if you can fire a pass in there and fire a pass in there as fast as possible, that's when you get your attacking wingers in those positions. And that, to answer your question, is why I actually moved the fullback into that position there. So if that is Dalot, I'm moving him in there because then you've got your winger, whether that's Mbeumo, Diallo, whoever that is on that side, as the attacking player to run at people in those areas. You want to get a team very narrow. Let's move a striker in there. You want to get a team very narrow so that you can attack those positions there, okay?
Interesting, you said that could be Mbeumo, Dino. That would suggest that the number 9 slot is absent because he has occupied that in those last 2 games against City and Arsenal. Have I stumbled upon something in the Dean Scoggins mind?
I think you have, because I think there's it's a serious question for Carrick about going with the same attack. You know, we've got, I mean, the same striker, because you've got Mbeumo and Bruno who have played so well together in those areas there. But when you play, what's been so good is because another team has come out into those areas like that, and then you're occupying this space in here. You're working in this space, and that's where Mbeumo's come to feet. Bruno's gone in there. Amad Diallo's gone in there, and they've got those crossovers of those positions. But against a deeper defence, the big question that will be in Carrick and Steve Holland's mind as they go through the tactical setup this week is, actually, if Benjamin Šeško is here, would you then occupy 2 centre-backs, which then means you've got Mbeumo to play somewhere else? So there's a tactical question up front there, because we know that against the low block, you're going to be wanting Bruno Fernandes to be buzzing around in these areas here, either here or here, to try and create that opening. So is actually Mbeumo going to get as much joy against a deep defence as he has done on the counter-attack in the last 2 weeks?
Worth noting as well, Dino, that Manchester United have had 32% possession, I think it was, against Manchester City, and it was a little bit more against Arsenal in the 40s still, though. I think people are just assuming, and judging by the question, that they're going to have the majority of possession in this game. Fulham are only 4 points behind them in the Premier League at time of speaking. Are we doing Fulham a disservice? And would Manchester United and Michael Carrick actually be happy to see that possession stats? If not, the majority with Fulham, but at least a bit closer to 50-50 rather than like the 60, 70, 30 that people might expect United to have.
Yeah, spot on. I think Fulham would probably quite like United to have 65, 70% possession, but I don't think that will happen. And the other thing...
Man United wouldn't.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we've gone through this before, haven't we? But maybe last year when it was Man United Tottenham, I think we did in the preview to the Europa League final, where it was almost like, no, you have it.
Yeah, we don't want it.
Yeah, exactly. And we set up in that way. But Fulham, don't forget, they've got runners like Iwobi who carry the ball very quickly. They've got ball players like Harry Wilson. They've got Anthony Robinson who will attack down that left-hand side. They very much favour the left Fulham because Harry Wilson comes in offside and they favour that left. If that happens, that will allow United to go up that left side very quickly and get the ball over to there if Fulham vacate the left. But the other thing I want to mention is the playing out, because what Brighton-Fulham was really interesting last week was because Fulham didn't really want to press. I know I'm probably the only person who's not a Fulham fan or Brighton fan who watched that game.
I'm just wondering, Dino, if anyone's ever uttered the words Brighton v Fulham was really interesting.
Oh, come
before.
on, purist football. Right, so I've just moved them forward there into a sort of attacking shape if Lamans has the ball to play out, okay? So what we've seen really, really cleverly from United is the centre-backs, this is under Carrick, okay? Right. The centre-backs go in there, and then if you go off there, the two centre midfielders are then coming in here to try and get these two out so that then that space is opened up again. And that's where we've seen Bruno go one way and Mbeumo go the other way, and then Amad Diallo run in the space behind. So they're trying to manufacture a position where they can fire the ball into Brian Mbeumo or Bruno Fernandes in here and play out from there. So Fulham, Brighton try and goad the press, right? We've said that a lot. So I don't think Fulham will go. I think Fulham will sit in there and they won't entertain it. They'll say if Martinez has got the ball there and Maguire's got the ball there, no problem. Yeah. If Luke Shaw's got it there and Dallow's got it there, we haven't got a problem. So
you're not going to hurt
exactly.
us there.
So I think it will be a little bit like, so Crystal Palace do this very well. You know, it's a Glasner tactic where the halfway line is your guide. So do not cross that line. That will be it. Do not cross that line. If all of a sudden United play into here, then that group of four that are in that area there go for the ball and try and win it back going the other way.
Nice one, Dino. Right, one word answer then. Mbeumo or Šeško?
Mbeumo, just.
Mbeumo. Right, let's have question number 2. Then, Dino, who replaces Patrick Dorgu and why? Obviously scored that phenomenal goal at Arsenal. Love a crossbar and in finish. But then went off with the hamstring injury, of course. Going to be out for a few weeks. Lots of fans will think this is an obvious answer, but maybe not so much.
Yeah, and this kind of builds on the Šeško point from just before. It's a second dilemma, if you like. And look, the obvious answer is Matheus Cunha, right? Yeah. That's the obvious answer in that position there. And actually, if you just look at it in an attacking shape again, and again, my favourite 5 up attackers, 2 midfield players and 3, yeah? 3-2-5. That's the obvious thing, because if Cunha starts on the left and comes in here, then you've got your Cunha and Mbeumo and Bruno attacking pivot, if you like, there. However, having said that, that then means you've got Amad Diallo on this side, and then you've got Luke Shaw, who's the one providing the width on this side. Yeah. So, yeah, that looks fine, but what that means against that low block is you're putting a heck of a lot of emphasis on Luke Shaw this side to be the attacking outlet and to be the one running at that defender, which we know is not Luke Shaw's forte. Overlaps, yes. Little left foot crosses from that area when they recycle it the other way, yes.
Malacia?
But he's not going to... I don't even know if Malacia is fit, to
He was
be
on
honest,
the bench
but,
on the weekend.
I hadn't even thought of him, but that's an interesting point. The other option is to just say that we put Amad Diallo as the left winger,
right,
and then Cunha still plays, but plays as the other part of the 10, and then you have your right back doing the option up the right hand side. But again, then who are you leaving out?
Yeah.
You know, you're leaving out a different player, or you're moving Cunha to the other side. So you could play Šeško there, and then you're leaving out Cunha, because then you have Amad Diallo, Brian Mbeumo coming from the right-hand side, and you've still got your 10s playing off him.
So knowing what you've seen about Manchester United in the past couple of weeks and what you know about Fulham, you've already said Mbeumo would be best placed in that number 9 position still, even though it makes sense.
I think it's a real dilemma. I think it's.
But what's your 4-2-3-1?
Best placed because of the form he's in and then the goals he scored the last couple of weeks. And if it drops to somebody, who is it you want it to drop to at the moment? It's Brian Mbeumo, definitely better finisher than Benjamin Šeško. And the other thing that is important in this is that, again, we talked about this before, but how sad I was watching Middlesbrough games from the last 2 years and going back through. That's research, folks.
Even
that
less
is
interesting
research.
than Brighton v Fulham?
No, it's just a different style. But in the last couple of episodes of Team Talk and Tactics Exposed, I've talked about connections between players, okay? And one thing that Carrick has brought back, which was not happening under Ruben Amorim, is that you've got players in a position like that. In that they're creating little diamonds, not just triangles, diamonds, extra numbers in that shape. And then other teams get sucked into that little pattern because then it's like, well, we need to try and get the ball back. You've got Kobbie Mainoo playing little bounce passes with Bruno Fernandes. And then what happened for that Dorgu goal? They break out of it, and then that space there opens up, right? So what's been really interesting watching that Carrick setup from Matt Middlesbrough as well is that he's creating those connections against low blocks higher up the field. So against Arsenal, it was in sort of this zone here. In Manchester City, it was this zone here where those little connections are happening. So now you've got to make those connections happen here, in that position there. And so that if then to attack these places, and that's where, to answer the question, to me, it's Cunha, because who's got the best feet? So who's going to be the one who attacks in that little zone? Who's
your 4-2-3 or your 2-3-1?
The 2-3-1 is still, I think, the Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro double pivot to start with. And then it's Bruno Fernandes at the 10, it's Amad Diallo and Cunha off of Brian Mbeumo, which won't surprise many people, but it's because of this connection here. You want Bruno Fernandes in here, off Brian Mbeumo with Cunha, so that they can play those little patterns of play either side in a different way to their counter-attacking shape.
Well, it's another test of Dino the Oracle. Dino, people getting in the comments saying that these shows should come with spoiler alert, so if you've got another one right there, people will be impressed. Let's have a look at question number 3. Does Mason Mount have a future at Manchester United? Interesting question, Dean, particularly what you've discussed there and the fact that you sort of, under Ruben Amorim, he was never like the first name on the team sheet, and it kind of, from what we've seen in these first 2 games, you'd suggest that he's going to be in the same situation again?
Yeah, he was very much a favourite of Ruben Amorim because Ruben Amorim really liked the style of player that Mason Mount is. The short answer is yes, I do think he has a future, because one thing we shouldn't underestimate that, look, Carrick's not been lucky in what he's done. They've done very, very well for those first 2 games. He has, however, been lucky from a team selection point of view. If you go back and look at Manchester United's bench over the Christmas period, you're looking at 16 and 17-year-olds. That Aston Villa away game when Bruno Fernandes went off injured, and the only look, Shea Lacey's going to be a superstar, but it was kind of the only option that was on the bench, and only attacking option anyway. And then all of a sudden you look at that Arsenal bench, and you mentioned Malacia there, but you know you had Cunha to come on, you've got Mason Mount sat there, you've got Šeško who came on. They've got lots and lots of different options. So yes, I do think he has a future. And in this game, there's a scenario where if United are either chasing it or still haven't scored, then there's a scenario where we're going to be talking about Mason Mount coming on. And Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro have obviously been that very, very solid double pivot against Manchester City and Arsenal in an attacking sense. But if the game isn't going the way United want it, they need to get another player into the box here, then maybe one of the substitutions is Kobbie Mainoo or Casemiro off and Mason Mount on. And what that means is you have another player running past the ball. If you go through United games against Bournemouth, Leeds, the last time they played Fulham, what they do is they have loads of possession, that dreaded horseshoe shape that I talk about where the ball goes around the outside and nobody goes beyond the ball. And Mason Mount has a really good knack of getting from a position like this in midfield, when the ball's over this side, to getting into a position like that and forcing a defence back. And teams like Arsenal and Man City do that really well. They force teams back into that position there, right inside their own box, and that's when cutbacks come for other goals. And Mason Mount might not be the one who scores the goal, but he's got a really good ability to force teams back into the area. And he's a live wire. So at the moment, he's likely looking at the role of impact sub. But going forward, look, Bruno Fernandes gets an injury or needs a rest. Mason Mount comes in and it's like for like. And you want to change the shape up in the second half. Take off Kobbie Mainoo. You can bring on Mason Mount as an extra attacking player.
Yeah, interesting, Dino, that you have him at the base of the pivot, because lots of fans, I think, would assume he would come in that attacking.
Only in an attacking sense, though. I wouldn't do it if it was 1-1. Yeah. But in an attack, if they're chasing the game, because you also remember you get Bruno drop deeper then to come and get the ball against the low block.
He's like almost one of those players, sort of a victim of his utility.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's quite good at doing everything. But look, don't forget, with Betfair's Safe Sub, your bet isn't over if the player you have backed gets subbed off, because your bet simply rolls on to the player coming on. So if you've backed Casemiro to get a yellow card, he gets hauled off, and just like Dino said, Mason Mount comes on in his place and then he gets booked, you still get paid out. Happy days.